Hello, welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, and I'm here with my mentor, Jyoti Wind. Jyoti, welcome.
Thank you, Lauren. Pleasure to be here.
Jyoti, I'm looking forward to today's topic today on ancestors. And as we open up, would you like to call in the directions for us?
I would. Thank you. Grandmothers and grandfathers, ancestors of the East, we call to you. We ask for your presence today. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the South, ancestors of the South, we call to you. We ask for your presence today. Grandmothers and grandfathers, ancestors of the West, we call to you. We ask for your gifts and your presence today. Grandmothers and grandfathers, wisdom keepers and ancestors of the North, we call to you. We ask for your presence today. Grandfather Sky, ancestors of the upper world, we ask for your presence. Grandmother Earth, you who have provided cells for us and all our ancestors, we ask for your love and support. And to that wise being, that ancestor that lives in our heart, may that being be present also. So I just have a short kind of blessing poem for the ancestors. I ask for the blessings of my ancestors, that their grace and their hopes and dreams rest upon my heart to carry into the future, so that they continue in my dream of life.
Jyoti, I'd love to open this up with your definition of an ancestor. I know before I studied with you, my idea of an ancestor was a name on a family tree. And there was no relationship. It was just a name and someone that had died before I lived. What is an ancestor in the shamanic perspective?
Well, there's different ways of looking at it, you know. Daniel Four and Christina Pratt talk about the healed and the unhealed ancestors. You can look at it as the most recently dead and the long time dead. You can look at it as those who have passed through the light, those souls who have lived and died and passed through the light and come into their own evolution and their own wisdom. And those are the ancestors. Those are the beings through time that influence us. They may be of our DNA family, they may be of our spiritual lineage. And then there are those who, just because they passed from this realm, doesn't mean that they're instantly wise, that they're instantly part of the light in the sense of being able to dispense wisdom. They are still in the process of their own evolution, and they are still working through their own stuff. Okay, so to me, the ancestors, when I speak of the ancestors or think of them, I think of those who have died eons and eons ago and who have are mature souls, are enlightened souls who we are their dream. You know, they dreamt us into being in a sense. They brought forward their truths of what they could do with their lives on earth. And then as they passed and matured and grew and evolved, they are there for us to tap into their wisdoms and their advice.
Wow, that's so rich. And I can think of several threads I'd love to follow up with you on. Let's start with this one. You spoke of DNA lineage and spiritual lineage. Talk to me a little bit about those two.
Well, we incarnate into a family, and we take on the DNA of that family and that DNA lineage in a sense, like why did we incarnate into this particular family line? And there might be a myriad of reasons why one would do that. Because they had specific lessons for us. They would offer us specific experiences as a soul, as a personality, um, certain ideas, concepts, belief systems would have come down through that family line. And maybe that was what we needed in this life, in this personal life. But as souls, we also might have our own spiritual lineage that we have been part of over time. Let's say somebody has been, under the Buddhist lineage, maybe several different lifetimes. And so there's a spiritual inclination there and a certain belief system there that carries through into this life. Someone may have a penchant for paganism, and witchcraft as it was practiced, centuries ago, not necessarily what's happening right now. But so their pagan roots call to them. They may have lived many different lifetimes in some type of a pagan thought form, lineage, group of people reincarnating again and again to bring that to some type of evolutionary place.
Hmm. And we have ancestors in both lineages that maybe
I
just,
Yes, yes, I would think so.
okay. Okay. I want to go back to this comment you made in the beginning of these two different types of ancestors. And let's look at what does that really mean to be unhealed or unevolved?
Well, everybody's working their stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they're learning different things, maybe how not to judge, or to be more loving and kind, or to be of service, or to have everything that they ever wanted to have. I mean, there's so many different pathways in this life. Some people learn how not to be selfish. Some people learn how to accumulate all the money that they could ever hope to have and not know what to do with it, or some people came to learn what it's like to be very empowered, um, in a manipulative way and in a service way. So there's many pathways on this planet for us to live, types of lives. And it's interesting when you look at someone's life or you talk to someone about the path that they follow, sometimes they don't need all that other stuff. Their path is this. This is what they're learning, unconditional love in this life, which takes them through judgments and maybe jealousies and, all different kinds of experiences. Then there's someone else who just has this desire to be on the top of the heap, and to have it all. And they're learning lessons of greed. They're learning lessons of power and manipulation. They're learning lessons of maybe emptiness, you know? And then what does it take to feel fulfilled when they have everything and they're still not fulfilled, really, in the heart? Or they're happy with their power and they're happy with where they've come to, and that was the lesson of the life, no blame. And then maybe they come back and become a Zen monk the next life
Mhm.
to balance it out.
So when we're referring to unhealed or unevolved, that might be that they passed on before they learned the lessons they were here to learn.
Yes, or they learned it, they got that, and now they're on to a different path.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, not every path takes you all the way, let's say.
Sure.
There's, different things along the way. There's major distractions all the time. And so we get pulled away from our path or our, what we're thinking we're here to learn. So perhaps we come back again and again. And so I think that the reference to the unhealed ancestors is really more about that evolution of I remember the Michael teachings talk about baby souls and who want it all, like a kid in a candy store, and then mature souls and then old souls. And um and so there's different levels of evolution, but yet we're all equal, in the eyes of the creation. And so we just have different learning paces, different paths, and different timings of things, I think. And so the ones who have not learned all they came to learn, they're still in the process. So maybe their advice is not as wise. Maybe their advice is not as clear. This is just a supposition on my part.
Sure. Sure. Okay, well then let's move on to then those ancestors that we might call on for support. What do we know about them and how might we work with them?
Well, from a shamanic point of view, we would maybe do a journey to go find an ancestor or ask an ancestor to come to us, to be a teacher for us, to advise us. Um, we might call upon an ancestor, maybe an unspecified ancestor, because we don't know them, necessarily by name. They're old and ancient. And we might ask them to help us with specific things. I know that some people who do psychopomp work, who help guide souls after the body has died, a lot of times they'll call an ancestor as a psychopomp leader
Mhm.
and teacher to teach them how to do that work. That's not how it came for me, but I know that there's other people that call upon one of their ancestors or an ancestor to come and be a teacher for them and be a guide for them to learn that work.
Mhm. And why would I look to my ancestors for support or guidance?
Well, they have the wisdom of having lived and evolved and made their way on this planet at different times than the times we're living in. And you know how sometimes, even inadvertently, we gain knowledge just by living in the day to day. A person of, let's say, 70 years old, they have some accumulated wisdom. I mean, if they've purposely worked on it, they might have a lot. But just in the fact of living 70 years on this planet and dealing with their own childhood, growing up, being an adult in the world, having families, maybe being grandparents, I mean, and navigating life and business and everything else that life takes us through, you accumulate a certain knowledge and you begin to understand the cycles of life, childhood and then young adulthood and etc. and and you see the patterns that they're, in a sense, it's always the same. It's always the same. Kids go through this, and then they go through this, and then they become teenagers, and Kundalini starts rising, and they start acting out or whatever, and making a bid for freedom is what it is. And then some people marry, some people don't, some people have families, and so you begin to recognize and understand and gain wisdom from what you're observing, what you've observed of life. So when you think about these ancestors who lived a much different life, back in the Paleo and the Neolithic and all of that, you realize that they have a knowledge of survival. They have a knowledge and a wisdom that we don't have living in an ultra civilized culture, you know. And so these beings are available to us. We are their dreams. They dreamt us into being, in a sense. They hoped for what their downline would be able to evolve into and know and experience. Even though they might not know us personally, like we don't know them personally because of the eons of generations between us, they are there and willing to come forward and work with us and guide us.
Beautiful. What about folks that don't know their lineage and perhaps were adopted or just don't have that background information? Can they work with their ancestors?
Absolutely, because they were birthed from two sets of people, who were birthed each by two sets of people. And so the lineage is there. They may not consciously, with this brain and this mind, be aware of who they are, but they have that lineage just by being born into a human body. And so they can just put out a call to their ancient ancestors, their ancient lineage, and see what kind of being shows up. I mean, it's not going to be, let's say, Lithuanian, or it's not going to be Hawaiian necessarily. It's not going to have that kind of cellular DNA ancestry. Oh, this is an ancestor from this place. This is an ancestor from when there were no divisions, no states, no landmass recognition. These are beings who are here to guide us, and we just have to call upon them.
Are there certain circumstances where you feel working with our ancestors can be particularly profound?
I think that, especially with the adoption question, that it can, because it can give you a sense of solidity at your back, so to speak, a certain solidness that you are on firm ground that other beings hold for you. I mean, I remember the expression, we stand on the bones of our ancestors. I mean, literally and figuratively. I mean, those bones are in the dirt, those bones are in the soil. And we stand on their shoulders, and we stand with them at our backs. They are protectors, they are teachers, and calling upon your ancestors to work with them and to just sit down and have a conversation, introduce yourself to them and have a conversation with them, in a like a shamanic journey kind of way, or even a creative visualization way. It can work as well. There's many roads to Rome, so to speak.
And then there are many folks that have separated from their families because of trauma or challenging circumstance, and say, gee, I don't want to have anything to do with this bloodline any longer. How would you advise someone in that circumstance?
To call an ancestor to come and work with you that doesn't have to be of your bloodline, of the bloodline that you incarnated into. This isn't all of your identity. I mean, you carry the DNA for this life because of the parents you chose to be born to, but you're so much more than that. Possibly you've had, you know, 10,000 lives already and been in different lineages and DNA forms in each one. And so calling an ancestor to come to you is not necessarily an ancestor of your bloodline. I just think of the ancients, the ancients and their wisdom, and these beings who have their own spiritual dimension, their own spiritual lives, their own spiritual awareness that can come and help us. They're just, the old ones, as they're called. Yes, the old ones.
And we may form a relationship with someone that we may never really know how they fit into our history or our lineage.
No, it's the same way if you think of it, like you might call, a being to work with you in your own spiritual development and maybe teach you some grace, and or open you to grace. And so you may call, maybe your mindset is, your belief system is more angelic. And so you would call an angel to help you and work with you, this spiritual being that's not necessarily of the human lineage. Um, and we don't know where they came from. We don't know their DNA, if they have DNA. We don't know who their ancestors or teachers were, or are they eternal beings that just were created and continue. So we don't question them. We don't say, well, are you related to me, or are you this or that? We just accept the fact that maybe we've been graced with this companion or this teacher on the inner worlds who has volunteered to come and help you through some of your own evolution.
Yeah, beautiful.
So it's not so much the denomination, we talk about our ancestors, and there's all this genealogy and all of this that's huge right now. But we're not just this. We're not just this. We're not just this DNA. We're not just this family line. Our souls incarnate here and there and everywhere to gather the life experiences on Earth, on this planet, that will help us grow as a soul, evolve, and hopefully become more enlightened. And so it's not just this DNA lineage that we're working with in this life. I just, the way I see it is, we're just so much more.
Yeah, that's so powerful, Jyoti, and also helps diminish some of the challenges we may be facing this time around. This is just, this point in time, this
Yes,
human body, but it's just a moment in the big scheme of things.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so we can identify with our culture, we can identify with our country, but we don't have to uh, just stay there. We're citizens on a globe. We're a global family, and we came as a wave of humanity, let's say, to the earth to have these experiences. Some souls come from different systems. Some souls have different ways, different perceptions. But we all came at this point in time, like some mass agreement, to people the earth and help the planet evolve as she goes through whatever planets do, that how they behave or learn in their own evolutionary path. And so I believe we came to help the earth in that process,
To be of service.
to be of service. and to be of service to our own evolution.
And acknowledging that we have help right there all the time just for the asking.
Just for the asking, but you have to ask.
Yes.
You have to ask. There's no question. It reminds me of Star Trek, and they couldn't impose their beliefs or their knowledge or wisdom on a race of humanity or a race of beings. They couldn't do that. That was the one thing they couldn't do. And so unless they are asked, they have to refrain. And so we have to ask.
Yeah, beautiful. I think you have a lovely visualization plan for us.
I do. So take a nice deep breath and just relax. Just let go of the cares and thoughts of the day. And just picture, whether you know them or not, it doesn't matter. Just picture your family line, like a line going back through time, way distant past. And then see those that, if you have them, that extend out from you. And it doesn't have to be your own children. I mean, your downline or download can also include nieces and nephews, can include people that you're really close to, not family of origin, but family you've created in a sense by your belief system compatibility. And just see them extending out from you. People that you might influence or talk to or share with. And then go back. Go back all the way back to the beginning of time. Just have that thought and remember the light of creation and see it as it begins to move through that lineage, that DNA, healing and releasing the difficulties, the confusions, the pains, the wounds, the perpetrations, all the things that came before you that come into you. And just see that light of creation just coming through the generations behind you, healing, erasing, soothing, loving it all out just into light as it comes to you. And then seeing that light just kind of loving or burning off whatever you carry of your lineage that is not what you want to carry forward. And just being in that light for a moment. And just picturing it filling all your cells. Mental body, emotional body, physical body, spiritual body, just burning off, just with the light of love, all of that which has come down to you for you to work through. Just letting that light burn it all off. And then picture that light going out from you through your downline, if you have a downline, through your children and their children and their children and their children, your nieces and nephews and sisters and brothers and all the people that extend out from them down through the generations. And then your friends, your family of choice, and all of the beings that will come out of those people, all down through the generations. So that you're clearing, you're doing what you can do with the essence of light, the creation light, and the essence of love, as it all came down to you, passed through you in whatever way, and goes down through generation after generation and generation. And give thanks for this work that you are able to do for all of us.
That was beautiful, Jyoti. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you'd like to share today about ancestors?
I think we honor them, by introducing ourselves to them and allowing them to advise us and have a relationship with them. I think that we honor them and we honor their life and their struggle and their effort and their evolution. And so, even though we ask them for help or guidance, we are also offering them that honoring of their own life. Because if we exist in the eternal now, there is no way back time. There is no huge future in front. There is the eternal now, and we're acknowledging those beings who are there to help us whenever we reach out.
I think that's a perfect place to end this.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Jyoti, I'm sure you have created quite a bit of interest in your work. Where could people learn more about it?
I have a free YouTube channel that has some classes on it that I've taught here and there. And these interviews that you and I are doing on YouTube. And I have a website, jyotiwindastrology.com, and email wind.jyoti@gmail.com. I think that covers it.
Okay. And you work with people on an individual basis
Yes.
as
And I
well as in classes.
and teach classes. Yes. Yes. I work astrologically with people and I work shamanically with people, depending on what the need is.
Wonderful. So, listeners, we're going to wrap up this series with a little bit of a break coming up for the next couple of weeks, but we'll be back in early September with a whole new list of topics under the realm of shamanism, metaphysics, and grace. So, thank you, Jyoti, for your time today.
Thank you, Lauren.